we'll just see how this goes. So today I want to talk to you guys about kind of a big topic, and that's greatness. And actually, it's going to get redefined a little bit today. At least in my heart, as I was doing this, it was very much redefined. And so I wanted to start by asking, just kind of think about this. You don't have to respond, but what is greatness? A lot of the times when we think about greatness, instantly people will come to our mind like Winston Churchill or Martin Luther King Jr. or even Bill Johnson. Like, we have all of these people who we look at and we just think like, oh my goodness, they're great. And normally that's like set aside because it's someone in authority, someone who has drive and passion and is reaching for goals and achieving things and doing things. And like, we assign different characters and attributes to that when we think about it. And we ask like, what is greatness? Who is great? And I feel like we all have this innate drive to like really do something great. And Bill even talked about it today. Like, even just as Christians, like, we are called to be great. And so thankfully the disciples had that same drive and that same passion and actually worked up the courage to ask Jesus, who is the greatest in the kingdom? And so I just kind of want to put ourselves in the disciples' shoes. And so they had just gotten he kind of schooled them a little bit in a lesson of taxes, which, like, who doesn't want to get that? And so when they're asking this question, I don't think they were necessarily asking for them specifically, hoping like, oh, this is the time for Cassie to be on the spotlight, you know, like this is the time. But I really think if it were me, I'd be asking for a model. A lot of the times when you see someone great, you begin to ask like, what is their journey? Yes. And you try and like create a formula almost where it's just like, okay, first A, then B. And I was thinking about this as I was writing it, and it was like, okay, well, Mark Brooks was a plumber before he like was in BSSM, or Rich Schmidt like cleaned the toilets. So like, all right, maybe there's a connection there. Like, all right, but and just kind of thinking, and maybe in their head they were thinking of someone like Moses or David or Daniel, some people who like really did something actually amazing. And so Jesus used this moment as an opportunity to define the kingdom. And so he went from a worldly perspective and actually brought forth to him a child. And so I want to read the scripture passage to you guys. It's Matthew 18, 1 through 6. So if you want to actually turn to that, I'll be reading out of the ESV if anyone is interested. And he said, at that time the disciples came to Jesus saying, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And calling to him a child, he put him in the midst of them and said, truly I say to you, unless you turn and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoever humbles himself like this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Whoever receives one such child in my name receives me. But whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a great millstone fastened around his neck and to be drowned into the depths of the sea. So it gets pretty intense there at the end. But today I want to talk specifically about the two concepts that Jesus kind of redefines and then actually ties together, and that's greatness and childlikeness. And so as he's doing this, he again is just teaching the disciples a little bit more of the concepts of the kingdom, and that's something that in this culture we're really exposed to. And you can kind of just see that he's showing how childlikeness and greatness can really go hand in hand. He's saying to be great, it's not trying to achieve something really high, but actually to humble yourself, to come low. And he takes childlikeness from a really negative connotation into a positive one, something to be desired. And so when I think of children, on the flip side of before, when I think of greatness, I think of children as a whole. You don't necessarily think of, oh, little Billy, and list all the things he's done when you think of childlikeness. You start to like think of children as a whole. And so a lot of the times they're not trying to stand out, they're being completely themselves. They are loving strangers just as well as they would love like their own family. As soon as you're comfortable enough with a child, they're like, oh, Auntie Cora, Uncle Ben, like, I'm not actually related to you, kid, but sure, why not? And so, and they're also emotionally raw and resilient, and there's absolutely no striving in children. If you look on the playground, like, you're not trying to see like who's the big kid on the block. It's just like, who wants to go on the slide, you know? And so this is something that, as I was reading this, I realized that my definition of greatness comes with a title. It comes with a label. It comes with a trophy and an award or something tangible I can hold. And God was really just speaking to me like, no, like, but I said, like, whoever, you have to become like this child and really think about what that means. And it kind of flipped on its head the same way it probably did for the disciples. And to kind of bring it in to make it, why it was such a struggle for me is I come from a family that definitely are high achievers. And so like my dad has a PhD, my mom, she did high school in 3 years and college in 3 years. So she graduated when she was 19 years old and was actually a practicing physician by the time she was 22.
Wow.
So it was like, she was like above and beyond. And I have just, they've always told you, stay in school till you can be your own boss. And it's just kind of like, for me, it was like, all right, greatness, again, comes with a title, something like that. And it got redefined for me. 6 years ago, this is going to be hard. I'm not going to be able to do it. 6 years ago, my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And last November, she actually went to be with the Lord, which is why I missed preach week the first time. And the night before, she was saying, we were getting ready for bed, and she was like, I need to read my Bible, I need to read my Bible. She started having this like almost anxiety attack about it. And I was like, Mom, it's okay. Like, once you brush your teeth, I'll totally sit down and like, we'll read. And so I was reading to her and we stopped and we were praying. And she just had this simple prayer of like, Lord, I love you. I love you, I love you, I love you. I need you close. I love you, I love you, I love you. And she just got stuck on that phrase of I love you. And it was like throughout the last 6 years, and it really defined like what greatness means. She had won so many awards, was revered by everyone in our town. And it was like sitting there seeing her just crying out, Lord, I love you, and knowing like that's truly enough.
Yeah.
And that's truly like the greatest moment right there is just knowing like when you are actually faced with everything, faced with the meaning of life, of whether it goes on or it doesn't, Lord, I love you. Just come close to me. I love you. And so as I was doing this, I realized like that's actually not the place I'm in. Like he was just asking me, is knowing me enough? Is loving me enough? And as Bill was talking today, he was talking from this part of like, well, of course he is. You know, like it was Bill. He was very polished. And I was like, I'm still in the throes of realizing that's still an internal struggle when God was like, is knowing me enough? Is loving me enough? Even when there are no letters after your name, is it enough to know that I'm close? And so I just want to challenge you guys to like really actually listen to that and listen to that inside and say, what are you actually defining greatness as? And when it's being redefined, like how willingly are you to accept it? And not to quote Bill Johnson or to steal his point or anything, but I feel like there are a lot of times, and I'm not, it's just he said it way better than what I was trying to say. You will not discover your significance until you grasp your insignificance. And I think a lot of the times it's really easy for us to just say, oh no, I got it. Like, thanks Lord, like I'm child, like now I can actually do something. Like now you can give me my call, now you can give me my dreams. And it's just like so many times we like skip over it. And he's just like, actually, the thing you're skipping over, that's the cracked foundation that I'm gonna have to build on. And it's like sitting here and actually searching your heart and asking like, what does it mean to be great? And so like even just letting God solidify that. And so Jesus gives us a really simple and practical example. He just pours forth the child, and that means something different to everyone. I heard someone preach on this, and they're like, oh, the silliness of the Holy Spirit, or whatever it is. And it's just like, God, there is so much joy in being a child. There is so much acceptance in being a child, and there's so much there. And it's just like the more layers you uncover, the more God is going to speak to you. And it's just like, I just want to challenge you guys, even in this moment, to like feel, what are you putting your weight in? What are you putting your stock in? How are you defining yourself? And not the cliche, like my identity is the daughter of Christ, but like sometimes it's like my identity is Cora as long as like MD's at the end of it. My identity is, you know, like everyone walks through and has their own. And so I just wanted to challenge all of you guys, because I was challenged and I still do not have a pretty bow to like wrap on it, because I do think and all these things shall be added to you, but it's that tendency to want to skip over it, so the tendency to get to the significance without actually realizing you're nothing without God, that actually realizing like I love you, come close, I love you, and that's the bottom line, that's it. And so I want to pray for you guys in closing, I guess. Lord, I thank you for this opportunity today just to come before and just to read your word. God, I thank you for how alive it is and how it can change every day as we read it from person to person. But Lord, it's still your truth. It's still you. And so I just pray right now that you would give us the grace to really grapple with this question, that you give us the grace to know that there is significance inside us, but it's nothing outside of you. And so I thank you for this room and for everyone in here and the calls on all their lives. I love you, Lord. Amen.